The year is 1946, and under the scorching heat of the sun, thousands of farmers in Gujarat stood in absolute silence. They were waiting for the British contractors to arrive, and as soon as they saw the British vehicle arrive, the farmers started pouring thousands of liters of milk on the roads, and suddenly, thousands of liters of milk, thick and wide, gushed onto the dry roads of the village. And when the Brits saw the angry faces of the farmers, they thought the farmers had gone crazy. But it wasn't craziness, it was desperation.
Battle lines were drawn. The mighty British Empire against a handful of farmers.
So these farmers went to meet Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel.
There is only one solution to this, Tribhuvan. To remove Paulson.
A dream for the economic liberation of the farmers. The protest movement gained strength and matured into a mass movement. The call for a full-scale rebellion thundered through the heart of Gujarat. Milk collection came to a grinding halt.
Because every morning, these British merchants would ride into these poor villages, they would demand the milk from these helpless farmers, and the farmers were so shackled by the system that they sold this milk to the merchants for a dirt cheap price. A price so cheap that it couldn't even buy them grains to feed their family. And by afternoon, that same milk would arrive to be sold in the lavish clubs and high-rise mansions of Bombay. And the irony was that while the richest men in the city sipped and enjoyed the creamy buttermilk, the very people who extracted this milk were starving and struggling. It wasn't just unfair, it was a crime that had pushed farmers so deep into poverty that most of them would rather hang themselves than see their families starve every single day. This British-backed monopoly was called Paulson Dairy. But from the depths of despair and exploitation, the courage of a united farmer brought forth a revolution so transforming that it did not just change the lives of the people, but the very soul of our nation. A revolution that gave birth to a name that would forever change India's dairy industry. And today, we all know this revolution as Amul, the pride of India.
आज अमूल दुनिया की 8वीं सबसे बड़ी डेयरी कंपनी है। आपको इसे जल्द से जल्द दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी डेयरी कंपनी बनाना है।
The history almost as long as independent India itself.
ये सफर है दूध की एक बूंद से शुरू हुई क्रांति का।
Amul is the world's largest farmer-owned cooperative in the world.
For every rupee we spend to buy an Amul product, 86 paise or 86% goes back to the producer.
Development of milk, development of cows is not so important as development of man. And to develop man, you have to involve him in the processes of development.
But now, India is facing a new battle. This time, it's not a milk crisis, it's a protein crisis.
Proteins are not only lacking in the Indian diet, but often overlooked.
More than 71% people in the age group of 30 to 55 years have poor muscle health.
7 out of 10 adults have poor protein intake.
हमारा जो हिंदुस्तान का जो health card है, वो बहुत खराब है.
And you know what the irony is? Whey protein is made from milk, and we are the largest producer of milk in the world. And yet, today, we have to import whey protein from other countries. Similarly, studies reveal that 73% of urban Indians are protein deficient, and an astounding 93% are unaware of their daily protein requirements. So India is facing a protein crisis. But now, the white elephant of India has finally woken up. This time, Amul is here to disrupt the protein market of the world. And I must tell you that it is nothing short of a revolution.
तो वर्ल्ड में पहली बार किसी ने अगर हाई प्रोटीन छाछ बनाई, लस्सी बनाई, हमने की। फिर हमने बोला कि नहीं, स्टिल इंडिया में डिमांड वे प्रोटीन कॉन्सेंट्रेट की काला डब्बा जो बहुत इंडिया में बिकता है. So we got into this space also. Then we launched high protein dahi, we launched high protein paneer, high protein milkshakes, and we now have a portfolio of a good primary product.
So we've prepared a detailed report on the gaps of the protein market, the players in this space, and Amul's supply chain, distribution, and marketing superpowers that could change the protein space of India forever. So in this episode today, let's do a deep dive and try to understand why is India such a protein deficient country, what are the biggest gaps in the protein market of India, what are the biggest challenges of building a protein brand in India, and most importantly, as the white elephant wakes up, how is Amul positioned to become the king of this market? Before we move on, let me introduce the partner of today's episode, which is Axis Max Life Insurance. People, uncertainties in life don't come with a prior warning. The emotional loss is absolutely devastating. But the financial burden, it can push a family into crisis. That's why Axis Max Life Insurance isn't just a policy, it's a promise to protect your loved ones. Built on the trusted partnership between Max Life Insurance and Axis Bank, this plan ensures double protection and double the trust. But what truly makes it stand out are the powerful benefits, like the special exit value, wherein you receive 100% of paid premiums back with no extra cost. This means once your financial liabilities are over, you can exit the policy. Additionally, Smart Cover gives you the option to increase your life cover by 50% in the first 15 years. This means your family will get 1.5x coverage, ensuring extra protection for your loved ones. And the best part is the 3-hour claims guarantee. If you have an active policy that qualifies, your claim will be processed and paid within just 3 hours. This will ensure that your family receives financial support quickly without any delays. And all of this comes at a cost of just 527 rupees per month for a 1 crore life cover. So the real question isn't, do you need a life insurance? It is, can your family afford to live without it? So don't wait for it and click the link in the description and protect your family's future today. Let's start by understanding the gold mine of the protein market in India. Like we saw in the intro, India has a massive protein deficiency. Studies reveal that 73% of the urban Indians are protein deficient, and an astounding 93% are unaware of their daily protein requirements. Look at this. The average Indian diet provides only 50 grams or less of protein per day, and that too if it includes high protein foods like dal and paneer. But even then, if you look at a healthy body, the requirement is between 0.8 to 1 gram per body weight. So if you weigh 80 kgs, you must have at least 80 grams of protein per day. So the first gap is the dire requirement of protein for a billion people. Secondly, India lacks practical sources of protein in food. If you see the cheapest sources of protein in India, they are soy, dal, egg and chicken. But the problem is that to consume 50 grams of protein, you will either have to consume 100 grams of soy or 4.5 bowls of dal, which is almost half a liter of dal a day, or you will have to eat 10 eggs a day. None of these are very practical because if you eat 100 grams of soy or half a liter of dal a day, it will cause gas and bloating issues for most people. And 10 whole eggs might get too overwhelming or sometimes even cause cholesterol and indigestion. So chicken is the only practical source of protein because it is both cheap and nutritious. But again, 40% of India is vegetarian, so even chicken and egg become irrelevant for this large segment of the population. Now, a lot of people might argue saying कि भाई, people can have protein powder to fulfill their requirement, right? Because whey protein powder or plant protein powder that cost 3 to 5,000 rupees per kg, they become the most practical sources of protein, isn't it? Then why don't Indians consume protein powder? Well, here's where the second big gap comes in, which is affordability of protein. To understand this, let's break down India into 3 categories like the venture capitalists do. India has 3 categories of people based on affordability. India 1, India 2 and India 3. India 3 is the bottom billion of India. Here's where the per capita income is $1,000 or 80,000 rupees per year or about 7,000 rupees a month. Now with 2 earning individuals in the family, that's 14,000 rupees a month. So let's take an example to understand the situation. Let's say Ramesh is a daily wage laborer in rural Bihar who earns about 7,000 rupees per month. His wife is a domestic worker who earns another 7,000 rupees. Their total household income is just 14,000 rupees. Now, if they have 2 children, for their family of 4, the total cost of 50 grams of protein on an average from a protein powder that costs about 3 rupees per gram would be around 18,000 rupees per month. So, it is more than the income of the family itself. And even from egg, the cost of protein alone would be 6,000 rupees, which is again almost 40% of their total income. Then we come to India too. Here, the average monthly income is around $3,000 per capita or 20,000 rupees per month. Here, let's consider Sunita, who's a school teacher in Lucknow. She earns 20,000 rupees per month, while her husband, who's an auto rickshaw driver, he also earns 20,000 rupees per month. So this gives them a total family income of 40,000 rupees per month. They have 2 children and they also have to take care of Sunita's elderly mother. Now, to meet 50 grams of protein per day per person from a protein powder that costs about 3 rupees per gram, they would need 22,500 rupees per month. So again, it's 50% of their income. And even from egg, it would cost them 7,500 rupees, which is 18% of their family income. But if you think about it, this family would rather invest this money in SIP than buying protein, because SIP seems more important than protein. This is the story of India 2. And then we have India 1, which is the top 10% of India that earns over $15,000 a year, or more than 1 lakh rupees per month. For them, even if protein costs 30,000 rupees per month, it's not really a big deal. So long story short, if you look at India, 90% of India, as in more than 1 billion people in India, cannot afford protein. So if you see, the protein market of India is just this top 9 to 10% of India, which is about 120 million people. So India has 3 major gaps: lack of awareness but a dire need for protein, lack of practical sources of protein other than chicken, and lastly, India cannot afford healthy, authentic protein powders. So the question is, what exactly makes Amul so special? And when no company has been able to tap into this protein goldmine of India since 70 long years, when protein specialized brands are finding it difficult to compete in the Indian market, how on earth can a milk company like Amul beat the legends and become a giant in India?
Amul, the taste of India, is the largest producer of milk in the world.
Today, there are 17,000 village cooperative societies. We are handling around 17 million liters of milk per day.
The success of Amul is one of the greatest success stories of independent India.
Well, first and foremost is the trust and love for the Amul brand. Because Amul is not competing with the legends, Amul is the legend. So if Amul rolls out a product and if it tastes good, it will be a massive hit in India. The second superpower of Amul is the incredible access to raw material, which perhaps no other company in the world has. But before that, you need to understand how whey protein is made from milk, because this is what will help you understand Amul's strength. You see, cow's milk is naturally composed of approximately 80% casein and 20% whey proteins. These proteins are complete proteins, as in they contain all essential amino acids. The journey begins with separating cream from milk to obtain skimmed milk, which is rich in protein. This skimmed milk can then be partitioned into its protein fractions. So when milk is curdled in cheese or paneer making, the process yields 2 parts: solid curds, which are mostly casein protein, and liquid whey, and what is dissolved in it are valuable whey proteins which make your protein powder. Now, in the traditional dairy operations, whey was often discarded or used as animal feed. But now, modern technology allows us to capture its proteins to make wonderful products out of whey. And here's where we have the process of ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration gives you whey protein concentrate powder. These concentrates typically contain 70 to 80% protein. Then to go a step further, there are techniques like microfiltration and ion exchange, which then make a purer version of protein, which is called whey protein isolate. Now, the problem over here is that in this ultrafiltration process, the amount of milk required is so high, that to produce just 1 kg of whey protein concentrate, we need 180 to 200 liters of milk. And to produce just 1 kg of whey protein isolate, we need about 200 to 250 liters of milk. Now think about this. A pack of 1 kg protein would need 200 liters of just milk. And even if milk costs 30 rupees a litre, the cost of just raw materials shoots up to 6,000 rupees to just produce 1 kg of whey protein powder. So the question is, how the hell are these protein brands able to sell you a pack of protein powder at just 3,000 rupees and still make a profit when the raw material itself costs about 6,000 rupees? Well, that is because, ladies and gentlemen, whey protein is not a product, it is a byproduct. And this byproduct comes out while making paneer and cheese. So if you're making paneer and cheese in very large quantities, whey protein is practically free raw material for you. And like I said, this is where Amul's advantage comes in. Very few brands in India make their own whey, because to make whey, you first need to sell milk, because manufacturing whey alone can't make you profits like we saw with the raw material equation. So most protein companies either buy whey from a vendor or they import it from other countries. So this way the margins shrink and the cost goes up. But you know how much milk Amul processes daily? Amul collects milk from 35 lakh milk producers and gets about 3.5 crore liters of milk every single day. I repeat, 3.5 crore liters of milk every single day. And this gives Amul 3 massive superpowers. Number 1, when Amul turns these millions of liters of milk into cheese and paneer, Amul gets free whey protein as a byproduct, which then turns into whey protein products.
पिछले कई साल से हम इस पे काम कर रहे हैं, तो अभी जो हमने वे प्रोटीन बेस्ड प्रोडक्ट्स बनाए हैं, तो हमको पाउडर बनाने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं पड़ती. उसी वे से हमने प्रोटीन किया, तो मेरे पास रोज का 25 से 30 लाख लीटर वे है. जो लोगों को फेंकने के पैसे देने पड़ते हैं, उसमें से हम लोग ये वैल्यूएडेड प्रोडक्ट्स बनाते हैं.
Secondly, since they have the ability to make protein in-house through ultrafiltration processes, they don't have to rely on a reseller or an importer for whey protein. And lastly, since they do it at scale with in-house operations, their cost of protein also goes down drastically. Now, look at the selling prices of the protein products in the market. While Isopure sells a product at 4,864 rupees per kg, which effectively costs about 5.4 rupees per gram of protein, Muscle Blaze sells at 3,399 rupees per kg to cost 4.5 rupees per gram of protein. Avatar costs 3.8 rupees per gram, Optimum Nutrition costs 3.2 rupees, whereas Amul only costs 2.7 rupees per gram of protein. Now the disclaimer over here is that there could be a stark variation in terms of the quality of these products in terms of texture, taste, flavor, sugar and carb content. So I would leave this differentiation to be done by the experts themselves. But if you look at it from a business perspective, in India it doesn't really matter if you add a few grams of sugar to your protein, because if it's affordable, Indians will buy it. Because our benchmark of a daily drink is Bonvita. So anything with protein by itself is a great product. So long story short, Amul most likely has the capability to produce whey protein at a much lesser cost due to its scale and in-house infrastructure. The second approach that Amul has opted in for is something absolutely unique. Instead of getting people to buy protein powder, which they are skeptical about, Amul, as we all know, has rolled out crazy products like high protein dahi, high protein paneer, high protein chas, and even high protein blueberry milkshake. And this is a brilliant business strategy for 4 reasons. Firstly, instead of convincing consumers to try an entirely new product category like a protein powder, Amul is enhancing the existing products that are already household staples. So instead of selling a regular paneer at 400 rupees a kilo, Amul is nudging you to buy high protein paneer at 750 rupees a kg. Instead of buying regular chach at 15 rupees, you could buy high protein chach at 25 rupees. Now this is genius because now consumers get more protein without changing their habits. So this upsell from paneer to high protein paneer is 10 times easier than convincing the same consumers to buy protein powders. Secondly, Amul is democratizing protein consumption to make it accessible to the mass market rather than niche gym goers. How? Well, protein powders like Muscle Blaze and Optimum Nutrition, they're positioned as premium products, which feels expensive and optional to many Indians, including my parents, by the way. And like we saw in the example, if a family has to spend 18,000 rupees only for protein, it just sounds super expensive. But when Amul's high protein range subtly integrates protein into daily diets without being perceived as a luxury price tag, that makes it super easy for the Indian audience to adopt. Thirdly, Indians traditionally rely on dairy as a primary protein source, which makes it a behavioral advantage. So unlike Western markets where protein powders are well accepted, India has a cultural gap in consuming artificial supplements. And Amul's catalog works insanely well because high protein dairy aligns with Indian meal preferences, where our moms used to add paneer in sabjis and give us chach with lunch for protein. So Amul knows that Mummy ji does not understand protein per serving. So Amul is increasing protein per serving so that Mummy Ji is always right. So with Amul's whey, there is no need for habit disruption, unlike convincing Mummy Ji to mix whey in water. And no habit disruption also means very less marketing needed. And this gives Amul a huge edge where rather than competing in a small fitness-focused market, Amul expands the entire dairy category into functional nutrition. And lastly, Amul has the distribution advantage.
GCMMF देश भर में 86 सेल्स ऑफिसर्स, 50 से ज्यादा प्रोडक्ट्स, 1200 से ज्यादा पैक्स, 15,000 से ज्यादा डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स और 10 लाख रिटेल आउटलेट्स के साथ सालाना 2,200 करोड़ अमूल प्रोडक्ट्स का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कर रहा है.
Now, protein powders are primarily sold online or in specialty health stores, whereas Amul is omnipresent in every kirana store and supermarket. And these kirana stores bring two superpowers. Number one is regular footfall, and number two, these stores are already connected to Amul's cold storage and supply chain. So Amul already owns cold storage and supply chain, and people anyways buy dahi and paneer as a part of the grocery shopping itself. Now, if you think about it, protein powder by itself requires intentional buying by going to a special store. So instead of competing to sell whey protein powder in the medical and protein stores, Amul will sell its high protein dahi from its own stores to the same footfall of the customers. This way, Amul will eliminate all distribution frictions to make high protein products effortless to purchase. So by leveraging existing trust, by keeping price points accessible, and by embedding protein into everyday foods, Amul has demystified protein consumption in India. This is textbook brilliance in action. And last and most importantly, Amul has the Brahmastra of the FMCG industry, which we call distribution. So let's try to understand distribution and why is distribution called the Brahmastra of the FMCG market. People, if I were to put it simply, distribution of a company, especially in this case, is a function of penetration, scale, retailer margins and marketing spend. Why marketing spend? Because marketing spend can actually increase scale and penetration, but it can drastically kill your margins and the retailer's margin. And when it comes to Amul's dairy products, they have distribution across 1 million outlets as compared to a few thousands of even the biggest protein brands in the country. Similarly, the scale of Amul is also unmatched because they procure 35 million liters of milk a day and process it all by themselves. So if they want to flood the market with whey protein products, they very easily can. But the catch over here lies in the other two variables, which are marketing spend and retailer margins. Now, because of Amul's brand name, Amul has the freedom to give 30 to 40% lesser margins to the retailer because Amul believes that even with 30% less profit, if a brand does 50% more sales, the lesser margins will pay off with volume of sales. Whereas if you look at conventional protein brands, they have given out margins anywhere between 20 to 40% to the retailers and 10 to 15% to the wholesalers. And just to give you a better idea about this, let's look at a breakdown. If Amul's whey protein powder directly competes with a conventional protein product, here's a look at the margin breakdown for conventional protein brand versus Amul at a 3,000 rupees price point. And here, we are making a very big assumption that the cost of production and the cost of shipping are the same for Amul and the other protein brand. Now, this is a wrong assumption, by the way, because Amul will deliver and produce both at a much cheaper rate. But I just want to show you as to how retailer margins alone can help Amul become a giant in the protein space. If this is clear, let's dive into the calculation. Look at this. At a selling price of 3,000 rupees, the retailer margin that conventional protein brands give out is around 25%. And for wholesalers, it's around 12.5%, which comes to 375 rupees. So revenue after trade margins is 3,000 rupees minus 1,125 rupees equal to 1,875 rupees. And from this revenue, the gross profit depends on production and logistics costs, which we assume to be the same for both. But if you look at Amul now, Amul traditionally offers 30 to 50% lesser margins than competitors because it has the vast brand catalog and the name of Amul itself pushes products out of the shelves more quickly. So here's the guesstimate margin breakdown for Amul whey protein at a 3,000 rupees MRP after it comes to the retailers and the wholesalers. If conventional brands offer 25% of 3,000, it comes to 750 rupees. But Amul offers 30% less than 750 rupees, which is equal to 525 rupees or 17.5% of the revenue. Then wholesaler margin for conventional is around 12.5% of 3,000, which is equal to 375 rupees. And Amul offers 30% less than 375, which amounts to 262.5 rupees or 8.75% of the revenue. So revenue after trade margins is 3,000 rupees minus 787.5 rupees equal to 2,212.5 rupees. So even with the cost of production and shipping assumed to be the same, Amul will earn 337 rupees more per unit sold than the conventional protein brands. And this is not it. With marketing, while most protein brands spend anywhere between 20 to 25% of the revenue in marketing, Amul barely spends 1%, I repeat, 1% of its revenue in marketing. So now, if you take out marketing cost from the revenue left, if conventional protein brands spend 22.5% on marketing and Amul spends only 1%, then the protein brand would have to spend 675 rupees per unit sold and Amul would spend just 30 rupees per unit sold. So now, if you take out these costs, while protein brands will be left with 1,200 rupees in revenue, Amul will be left with 2,182 rupees per unit sold. So do you realize this is a humongous gap? And if you consider the lower production cost of Amul and lower shipping cost, the math would tilt even further in favor of the Amul products. So do you realize the superpower? While conventional brands struggle with high cost and low margins, Amul's dairy-driven model, superior supply chain and razor-sharp distribution, all of them put together can allow it to undercut every competitor on price while maintaining unmatched profitability. This is the superpower that Amul possesses, which is why I call it the white elephant of the protein market of India. So the question over here is, does Amul have no challenges at all? And can it just straight away go on to become the undisputed king of the protein market? Well, not really, because as always, even Amul has three big challenges to overcome. While Amul is leveraging functional dairy to demystify protein consumption still remains widely misunderstood in India. Like we saw, 93% of the urban Indians are still unaware of their protein needs, and many people still believe that protein is only for bodybuilders and not for everyday health. So if Amul doesn't invest in aggressive consumer education, the adoption could be slower, which will then limit Amul's ability to achieve mass market penetration. Secondly, even though Amul's protein products are cheaper than premium whey brands, they're still perceived as an unnecessary expense by most Indian consumers. Like we saw, a family in India 2 or India 3 would rather spend 1,500 rupees on groceries than spending 1,500 rupees on protein enhanced dairy. So if Amul fails to drive down costs further, it may struggle to scale beyond India 1 consumers, which will again limit the mass market adoption. And lastly, if high protein chas, paneer or whey protein taste different and they taste bad, the consumers may reject these products. These are the challenges that Amul has to overcome if it wants to become a legend in the protein space of India. This is what concludes our analysis of the protein market of India and Amul's position to take over this market. And I just hope you learned something valuable from this case study. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.